Madam President.
Senator from Nevada.
Thank you, Madam President. One of the most visible expressions of the strength and resilience of our democracy is a moment when the incoming president stands on the steps of the Capitol, lays his hand on the Bible, and takes the oath of office. In that moment, America undergoes a peaceful transition of power that so many countries can only hope for. Or, like this year, the president will smoothly resume his duty for another 4 years. As we anticipate this remarkable moment in just a few short weeks, we're reminded of the American people's ability to come together even after long and challenging campaigns. I will watch that inauguration and remember my own difficult campaign. And as we reflect on this past year, we are all reminded that this president, the House, and the Senate have not been given any mandate by the American people. For proof, look no further than the close margin of victories and the wide disparity in the ideology between the two parties. The only mandate is for Republicans and Democrats to work together. What we saw during this election was an American electorate frustrated by gridlock in Washington and a Congress that does not get enough done for the American people. Our nation has endured a brutal campaign season of attack ads and partisan sniping. The ads are now off the air, the campaign offices are cleaned out, and now we face some very difficult decisions. Right now, Congress must find a way to steer our nation away from this fiscal cliff. We must move forward knowing that the only way to build a better, stronger nation is by working together and finding solutions on which both Republicans and Democrats can agree. Any solution to the impending fiscal cliff must be a bipartisan effort that fairly weighs the concerns of both parties. We must find a way to come together right now. The severe spending cuts and looming tax increases require it. Nevada is already struggling to overcome the highest rates of unemployment, foreclosures, and bankruptcies in the nation. The threat of this fiscal cliff and any failure to find a solution would have a real and negative impact on the recovery in my state. In the days following the election, I received phone calls from job creators in Nevada concerned about this fiscal cliff. These business owners told me that this fiscal cliff would be too much for Nevada. Their employees have already bearing the brunt of Congress's inaction. Finding a solution, they told me, cut a deal. The devastating effect that this fiscal cliff would have on Nevada's small businesses would simply be too much for their businesses and the small business sector in Nevada to handle. There are a number of issues that Republicans and Democrats can work together to address immediately. First, we must stop living by a temporary tax code. Right now, there is no certainty for a small businessman or woman to grow or start a new endeavor. These men and women need to know how to plan for the future so they can invest in new equipment, new buildings, and more employees. Second, we need fundamental tax reform. As with many small businesses across this country, businesses want nothing more than to grow, hire more people, and pass on a legacy to their children and grandchildren that shows, with hard work and dedication, anything is possible in America. As I've often said, our current tax code is too costly, too complex, and too burdensome. There is no question the tax code is unfair and needs an overhaul. Our nation is long past due for an honest discussion about how to transform our tax code into one that encourages job growth and one that doesn't hinder it. Third, we need to put a stop to the ever-increasing number of regulations. Instead of encouraging businesses to develop and grow, Washington has increased their burden with miles and miles of regulatory red tape, passed a health care law that is costing jobs, and continues with a top-down, Washington-knows-best mentality that has led to an anemic economy. While I do not believe sequestration is the answer, Congress must engage in honest debate on spending reform to right our nation's fiscal situation. Nevadans and all of Americans deserve a federal government that is more efficient and more effective, Washington cannot continue to spend money we don't have and place our nation in deeper debt and threatening the future opportunity for our children and grandchildren. Divisive partisan politics does a great disservice to every American. Far too many Nevadans are forced to stay up late at night wondering how they're going to make their mortgage payment, send their children to college, or feed their family. While people across our country are struggling to get by, Congress has a responsibility to prioritize the people over the party and find a way to avoid this looming crisis and get our economy back on track. These next few weeks are absolutely critical for the health of our country. Like that moment when the president takes office, how we work together to reach across the aisle, find bipartisan solutions, are a testimony that our democracy...
The senator's time's expired.
Madam President, I ask the unanimous consent to speak in the morning business for an additional 2 minutes.
Without objection.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. As I was mentioning, like the moment when the president takes office, how we work together to reach across the aisle and find bipartisan solutions are a testimony of our democracy. The greatest democracy in the world is alive, and it is well. Let's not squander this opportunity to place our nation on a path to greater economic prosperity. The American people have children to raise, mortgages to pay, businesses to grow, and new discoveries to make. It's time for Congress to come together, make the tough decisions necessary so that Americans can get back to work, create a brighter future for generations to come. Madam President, thank you very much. I yield back the floor.
Madam President.